Hey, peace, ride by. If you're new to the
I'm
channel,
back.
hit that like, hit that, hit that subscribe button. Y'all, they ain't chopping us up, is it? Oh, y'all, we got Chief up in here tonight. We about to get it cracking. We got so much evidence, man. That boy Rob, man. I guess Big Mama Best been giving them stuff. Hey, look into this, and then we look into it, and a whole bunch of stuff just started falling out. All this evidence that we found, and it's pretty much fruits of a part of this tree, basically, you know. Hey, Rod, so hey, we can get right. We're gonna bite right there. We got a couple questions to bite right down into it. Hey, y'all hit that like. I see y'all.
One thing before
Hey,
we get
Rod.
started, Elder.
So this go ahead, Rod.
Just y'all, all of y'all watching, y'all got to remember everything I do, whether I make an announcement or not, is public notice. All social media platforms are legal, viable outlets for public notice. The legal standard is time-stamped archivable format, right? With the reach of more than 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, roll the corn, Elder. Let's get it.
Hey, man. Also, like I say, this right here is evidence. All the tapes that me and Rod been doing is all evidence of all the information that we seeing. You know what I'm saying? So this pretty much is another nail in the coffin. Because when Rod said something about the Adjudication Act, then we went backtrack and found out that, hey, how did they reenact this Adjudication Act? They reenacted it through hijacking the Constitution 1789, 88. Hey, Rod, could you go in on that? So they hijacked the Constitution and they created this Adjudication Act, which I think was the Freemasons. And people blaming us, say, oh, the Moors did it. Right? Because one bad Moor like Benjamin Banneker. Go ahead.
You gotta remember when we say Moors, we make distinctions between dirty Moors and righteous Moors.
Right.
And a lot of people get that confused and they attack all Moors. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, just for some clarification, as soon as Empress Verdiasi let the dirty Moors in, she couldn't go no further. Her infiltrators was present. Mm-hmm. Malachi was doing just fine until he opened up the Nubian Nation, the Moorish chapter of the Holy Tabernacle Ministries. Soon as they came in, the bullshit came. Pay attention. Mm-hmm. This is not an accident. When Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam, wasn't damn pale-faced enrollee in the Nation of Islam. He said the Nation of Islam has been thoroughly infiltrated by the New York Police Department and the FBI. Right? Then he publicly started naming names. But during his public address, he said, I'm not telling you nothing that the police don't know because they told me. The police gave Malcolm the names of the infiltrators to try to get him to roll on Elijah Muhammad. The audio tape is available on YouTube when the FBI went to Malcolm X to try to get him to work against Elijah Muhammad, right? So it's not a secret. It's an open secret. It's something that's in the public domain that everybody has overlooked or neglected because it was hidden in plain sight. When it's hidden in plain sight is what we most likely to overlook. Example, everybody remember the I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King, but don't nobody remember the interview he did where he was standing in the church explaining how the European peasantry was brought over and undergirded with an economic floor and mechanized their farms in order to undermine and override the farms of the people of the land. We forget about that part. We forget about what he told Harry Belafonte. I think I might have integrated my people into a burning house, right? But how did he find out? Because there's a 4-year gap from 63, I Have a Dream speech, to days before his assassination, where he's giving this speech saying, I'm not sure this nonviolent stuff gonna work, but I done committed to it this far. I got to figure out a way to use it For what? To go get the check. I'm going to Washington and I'm going to get the check. Right? We also forget that he said, I'm tired of fighting for something that should have been mine at birth. That means that he knew what his birthright was. But between 63 and 67, 68, what happened that made him change his position and his ideology? It's called the Great Meeting. There was a mainstream media blackout, but it was reported with photographs in the Muhammad Speaks back then, and since been reprinted several times in the final call under the Minister Farrakhan. Elijah Muhammad gave him the whole scoop. We the tribes that don't got treaties. The tribes that don't got treaties is going to be treated worse than all other treaty tribes because we don't want to do business with the interloper. There's receipts on my page right now where it clearly say that it was Black Indians that was working for the government protecting the colonizers from Black Indians. Let that sink in. Roll the coin. Elder, what's next? You're on mute.
Hey, we got a couple of videos about Benjamin Banneker, and I got all the videos you sent me. But this is another question I want to ask you. Now, when you gave me that Adjudication Act, and then I backtracked and found, like I said, found out that they did this ratification, which is pretty much hijacking, and right before that. And then from that, they created the Judicial Act that created the federal jurisdiction. And then everything, if based on what the information you gave me last week in the tape we did in the Big Mama's 8, where the adjudication thing is a fraud pretty much, and people have already proven this in court, like the general, the EE General Electric Company went against a couple companies, went against them and proven that it was a fraud. So that stands the reason the Nationalization Act, copyright, the Patent Act, all these acts that came after that is all fruits of a poisonous tree, right, Rod?
Well, when the Pope rescinded the Discovery Doctrine, everything that follows the Discovery Doctrine is rendered null and void using the fruit of the poisonous tree. What do that mean, though? The fruit of the poisonous tree is this. If I rob young elder at gunpoint and take $100,000,
right,
and I take that $100,000 and I open up a dry cleaners, the dry cleaners is bringing in $10,000 a week in revenue.
Right.
I'm banking it. I'm not spending it. 90 days later, that's nine. Yeah, that's like $90,000 in the bank.
Right.
Right now, they catch me. They find the weapon, and they still find some of young elder's original money in my person, so they know it ain't no mistake about it. They got the right person. I'm the one that robbed young elder. Okay, now, under the fruit of the poisonous tree, when they find out what I did with the money, right, they take my cleaners. They take my bank account. I cannot benefit from these fruits that I gained from this robbing young elder situation.
Why? Yeah.
Now, it's two things they can do with it. Normally, if the injured party is privy to the information, which means the indictment, right? If he's privy to the indictment, that means he's a legitimate complaining party. And I was found guilty. Under the Restitution Act, I have to make him whole by surrendering any ill gains acquired off of young elders' stolen money. So when we go into the court and they find out, well, let me show you what he did with the money, and they're gonna draw up a financial chart. It's gonna show how much, what day I robbed young elder, how much I got from young elder, how much I spent on the dry cleaners, how much I made in my accounting process each week of dry cleaners. right? Now, once they get done doing all of that accounting, let's say that $100,000 I robbed Young Elder for is now $1 million. I can't have it. They can't give it back to me. Now, where is they getting this from? It's in the Uniform Commercial Code. Until the Young Elder discover who it was that robbed him, under the Uniform Commercial Code, I can live off of that. But if he come back and say, hey, you the motherfucker that robbed me, right? And I was like, the gig is up, I'm caught, right? Now, according to Uniform Commercial Code, everything that I did up until this point was fine. But everything that I got that's tied to Young Elder's money has to be surrendered to Young Elder. Fruit of the poison tree applies. How do that apply to what's going on with the government? They've been sending us into servitude because prison is slavery according to the 13th Amendment.
That's right.
So they've been sending us back into bondage and voluntary servitude at an alarming, disproportionate rate to the other per capita population of the land. And by them sending us into servitude and we not part of any agreements with them, we was not part, all of us wasn't part of the 5 civilized tribes.
That's right.
Right? The majority of us was part of the 4,995 tribes that's called foreign dependent nations, enemy combatants, belligerent tribes, non-treaty tribes, outlaw tribes. All those are different names that they use in reference to us over the years, other than the epithets that they give us for assumed nationality that we didn't take on.
No.
They don't want me to tell them I'm growth and development and that my Chief Larry Hoover. They want me to say I'm an American citizen and the president is my leader. He not my leader. He not my chief, right? So I can't make an allegiance with him because he's not my chief. Mm-hmm. And my chief is belligerent to anybody in public office. Why? Because they belligerent to him first. How do we know this? Because of how they entrapped him into a made-up, fabricated case and kept him in prison for 50 years. That's how we know. They actions, right? So that's called an overt act. When you seize the leader of a tribe, that's a blatant act of war, right? We supposed to be running up in there getting our shit back, but we was under the George Washington Conjure Challenge, which was sorcery, which allowed us to be in a slumber for 200 years. We can't quite figure out what's going on. And now we can see it clearly because we no longer in the age of Pisces and all of the veils must be lifted. So all of the veils being lifted, we can see clearly now the rain is gone. We know who they are, where they came from, how they got here. We know where they settled at. We know how they set up shop. We know their motives, they MO, their modus operandi, their method of operations. We know they kind games, all of their conniving and manipulative tricknology. 120 degrees of tricknology cannot beat 360 degrees of God body knowledge of self. It can't work. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 1/3 short. Because if you got 360, you take 120 away, that leaves you 240 to work with. If your 240 degrees of knowledge itself is not superior to the 120 degrees of trick knowledge, then you fake it. So I asked a question years ago. So you say you a God, do some God shit. You don't even know the difference between what gods do and what men do. Do some God shit if you want to be a God. If you're not on the status of a high intellectual capacity, you're not on your God mode yet. If you can't intuit, that means feel your way through what's being done, you ain't in God mode yet. All these people that's professing to be the chosen people of God, the sons of God, the saved people of God, and all these, they all are confused. They're not confused because they want to be confused. They confused because it was designed to confuse them of knowledge of self. So I was talking to a brother a little while ago, and he was telling me about Islam and Nation of Islam. I said, do you know why their doctrines is fundamentally different? He said, no, tell me. And I told him, the tribal rule is you can use anybody's information, but you got to make it your own. You can only stay in another chief house until you become the chief to establish your own. Can we show this working in the Nation of Islam by students of Elijah Muhammad that have took what they learned from Elijah and made it their own, and they opened up their own house? You got Clarence 13X, the Nation of Gods and Earths. You got Silas Muhammad from the new Lost Found Nation of Islam. You got Hulan X, aka Yahweh ben Yahweh, in the Hebrew Israelites. Then you got people that detest Elijah Muhammad after he taught them how to be a man, and they converted to Sunni Islam, like Siraj Wahhaj. Bilal Phillips was all associated with the early Nation of Islam movements in New York. But once they got to the point where they had outgrown what they thought was a doctrine that didn't suit them, they needed that discipline. They couldn't have been a functional imam in Sunni Islam without first being disciplined because of the nature of the people of the land. Because of our nature, the Nation of Islam has to have a higher level of discipline for us because we ain't easy to discipline. And we hard-headed, and we stubborn. And we don't bleed fat meat greasy even when we chewing it. And our lips is shiny, and our fingers is slippery. So we needed an excessive amount of discipline and an excessive amount of organized structure in order to be able to organize the knowledge of self into a cohesive format. A lot of people right now, they see the dirty Moors in the infiltration of our organizations. And then they blame the whole organization for the infiltrators' actions, right? For the longest, everybody thought that Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad had Malcolm killed until the FBI files finally come out that two of the people that went to prison wasn't even in the location at the time. The one guy that went to prison was actually the only one he was the first one to get out. Make it make sense. He was the first one to get out, walked around New Jersey unharmed and untouched. But them other two sat in prison another 15, 20 years after that guy was roaming the streets. He passed away though, but he was the only one that was actually involved with the New York Police Department, the FBI, and the assassination of Malcolm X. The other two was innocent. They did all that time for shooting Malcolm, and it was two Negro FBI agents that was the trigger pullers. One of them was actually still standing around Elijah Muhammad after the fact. The one with the shotgun and the peacoat. He stayed in the New York mosque the whole time. While the fallout was going on, he knew he was an infiltrator. And he ain't never stopped talking bad about Malcolm. But he was the infiltrator, right? So when we look back on it now with the FBI reports, and then we realize that all them years we was accusing the wrong people of the fall of our shining black prince. Just like Martin. We thought that some dude named, what's his name? Was it Lee Harvey Oswald? No, that's Kennedy. James Earl Ray. All this time we was thinking that James Earl Ray was the trigger man in the Martin Luther King assassination until we discovered that one, the bullet didn't kill him. The doctor killed him in the hospital because it came out in court. And we discovered that this dude was charged with Martin Luther King's murder and had nothing to do with it, was nowhere near the site, and they paid him $1 million to confess and never paid his family the money, which they promised him to do. When they reneged on, all this came out in the trial. What came out in the trial is that Martin was set up by them niggas that was on the balcony with him.
No Ty Jesse.
And they talked about, it's another receipt, if you go back a couple days on my page, where the brother was talking about how they was paid massive amounts of money to the church to bust up the cohesion by sending everybody off and giving them grants to do their own thing. All that was the fallout for Martin. But now we have people who don't understand what Martin went through, saying that he was a traitor because he changed his name from Michael King Jr. to Martin Luther King Jr., just like his daddy changed his name from Michael King Sr. to Martin Luther King Sr. Martin didn't actually have a name change till he was like an adult in his 20s. But they never stopped calling him Martin Luther from the time his father changed his name when Martin was about 5. So he wasn't even using his government name at all. Guess what? When you use a nickname or a non-government name, that's a tribal name. That's your nickname is your tribal name. That means your people named you that name and it stuck because of your character and your personality. So when we looking back on history, it's 2020, but it's clouded in a bunch of chaos to keep us confused. They had us thinking that Malcolm and Martin was in opposite ideologies. But when Dr. Clark told us that the contingency plan for the nonviolent movement was to unleash Malcolm. So they had to get Malcolm first before they get Martin. Strategic military planning. We never stopped fighting against the government, and they never stopped fighting against us. When we was complaining in the early 1900s, they didn't have it an open declaration of war on the record. They eventually put it in there where they declared war on the people. We are the people. When you see we the people, that means nappy head, woolly hair, brown skin, Aksumi Americans. Don't mean we the people as in everybody. We the people used to be the name of every tribe in their own tribal tongue, right? Even the word tribe is an exonym. We didn't refer to ourselves separate from one another because the sign language in the original native sign language for our tribal name was always we the people. So no matter, and there was another term we used called the kinfolk. The kinfolk was the ceremonial side that did the ceremonies. Right. And they was the ones that ceremonial tribal members went to. They was primarily the Blue House, and they called them kinfolk because everybody in the tribe wasn't a blood member of the tribe. They wasn't in the tribe by blood. They was in there by honor. Different system, different standard. On the Red House, you had to be blood related to somebody, or you can't get in none of their tribes. That's why right now, most of the people, you could reach out to Chief Warhorse, she's not going to talk to y'all. It ain't that she acting funny. She out the Red House. If you ain't related by blood, she don't want to really F with you. She don't really trust nobody that ain't from her bloodline. That's the way that they wired on her side of the family. Right? So our rules, under the kinfolk rules, what we call our GD literature, that teaches us growth and development. And it teaches us how to recognize other tribes and how to treat the foreign tribes when they come on the land. Ambassadors is what we being trained for. right? Why do we need to be ambassadors? Because ain't nobody training us to be it. So the executive board put out the literature that actually trains us to do this work that me and Elder doing, right? I speak up for Malachi, but Malachi not my chief. Y'all gotta remember that. I speak up for Angel Bay. That's not my chief. Larry, my chief. I speak up for Prince Lowe, Four Corner Hustler, and those are kinfolk. They not my chief. But when they've been done wrong and they've been attacked by the system, I speak up for Giant Africa, but I'm not part of the movement. I speak up for Mutulu Shakur, but I'm not part of the African Liberation Army. I speak up for Finney and Tupac and Huey, but I ain't no Panther. Right? I remind y'all about George Soledad, Brother Jackson, and I am a gorilla. BGF Blood Oath. Right? I speak up for Assata Shakur, but I wasn't part of the New African Liberation Army. All these different people was the leadership that was working to liberate us. So I got to know what they was doing, know if they was in the right, know how they got infiltrated, if I'm going to come out and tell our people why we ain't got our shit. And I'm telling y'all why we ain't got it. And no whether you like Trump or not, I don't care neither way about it. But he doing the work we need done. He's dismantling their corporations. And Greenland is a critical part of Turtle Island that y'all don't even know. The story is told as the story of Loki and the Ice Princess. Because when Big Mama returned, that's the crown of Turtle Island. That means that the sacerdotal seat in Philadelphia is when it moved across the Mississippi, right? She's still gonna have to have what's called a embassy suite in Greenland as representing the crown chakra of Turtle Island. So Trump got to get it back. He ain't got no choice. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I got a clip here from some stuff that you're talking about. Let me roll this clip real quick about the Trump thing in Greenland.
To get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger. There are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way. Please, go ahead, ma'am.
On Greenland, Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. And, with a nation, look at what happened with Obama, with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor.
Hey, one key fact that he said that just because you had a boat that landed there 500 years ago don't mean you own the place. We should be saying the same thing in the U.S. Corp. And
We are saying the same thing.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
You
Rob.
got to remember, Dred Scott applies. We didn't have any rights they was bound to respect. Right? They couldn't give us freedom because we was never slaves. Go back and reread the Dred Scott case. The ones who was captured and given freedom was called freedmen, but they couldn't give them freedom under Dred Scott because they was already free. That's why they named them freedmen. It's also freeman, right? What's the last name? Liberator, which means one that's been liberated, right? So we got to understand that we never stopped fighting since 1492. The war never ended until now. Until now. It just evolved. When you go back to the first 300-400 years, it was bloody war everywhere they went. They couldn't go nowhere. And they was being protected by people that looked like us, that masqueraded as us. But they wasn't us. And that's why they keep calling people the Black Indians was protecting the colonizers. No. The Black colonizers was protecting the colonizers. The paleface don't start coming over here to the 1600s. Who was we fighting from 1492 to the 1600s? They don't even get into the West African slave trade until after the West African slave trade was abolished in West Africa. So they said it wasn't no palefaces that was doing slave trading over there. And they wasn't coming over here. They was taking them around across the Pillars of Hercules to the Mediterranean, where they had their slave ports at. The slave ports was in Tunis, Morocco, and parts of Egypt, going into the Middle East. And then you had the ones in Europe that was in Greece, Italy, Sicily, which just took a major water hit. Sicily did. It's an island. Sicily is also where the offspring of Hannibal and his armies, who had children with the women from the Iberian Peninsula, they was exiled to Sicily by the Roman Negroes they was fighting. If you don't know who they was fighting, then you can't put this together. You got to realize Romans didn't turn pale-faced until the 1900s. All of those emperors was all brothers, but they got to give you the token. What was it, Marcus Aurelius? They had to give you the token Negro and then paint everybody else white, so it'll look like it was an exception. Emperor what was his name? He came from Africa. And the only reason why they had to tell you he was black, because part of his rise from general to emperor, right? They told where he came from as a military genius. They said he came from Africa, so they can't paint him white. And then in that era, for us to believe a white dude came from Africa, paleface came from Africa.
Hey Rob, before we roll, we got about 5 minutes worth of videos, but it's dealing around the dirty morals. But let me ask you this question, because it's gonna set up to watch those videos. Now, could you break down the Ponzi scheme? Because it seemed to me this was a long Ponzi scheme set up by a whole bunch of infiltration for people that look like us that ain't us, and it seemed like based on all the keys you gave me, and when I went to research, started looking into it, it seemed like it always lead back to the Freemasons with this black and white checkerboard flow. Like when they came out with the Nationalization Act 1790 that same year, you either was white or blackballed. You know what I'm saying? And I studied a lodge. In a lodge, when you want to join, when you got to ask a Mason, right? And then they they see you do this test rigmarole, then they vote you in, right? They vote you in by using all white balls. If you get all white balls, they bring you into the lodge. But if one person in the lodge put a black ball in there, then you can't be accepted to the lodge. So could you break down this black and white, the long Ponzi scheme, or what, the dude that started it and how they came up with it, what you was telling me earlier about the Ponzi?
So the game is okay. First of all, let's address the checkerboard. The checkerboard is not a checkerboard. First off, checkerboard is black and red.
Okay.
That's the first thing you got to know.
Okay.
This is not checkers. This is another game. The game is called chess.
Go ahead.
Right now, in the chess game, the white pieces are on attack. The black pieces are on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Being on defense makes you Humpty Dumpty, meaning that you got the potential, but they don't want you in the white with the free white persons in law. They want to assign you to become the black piece, the civilly mortis, lost and dead at sea. That means that you was originally from the land.
Mm-hmm.
The white pieces on this chessboard are the invaders. We started off playing Battleship. If you go back, there was an announcement in the news back when Trump first took office that there was a British ship that he told they can't dock in the harbor outside of DC no more. The reason that is because we had to sink their battleship. But first we had to get rid of the guard ship. The guard ship in the bay represented the guardian ship of the Vatican that was given to the Empire of Britain, right? And they had to keep the guardian, which was a guard ship, in the bay. Now, the guard ship is protecting the ship that ran ashore, the Plymouth Rock, the Mayflower, the good ship Plymouth, right? Malcolm told us we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, right? Because he was telling us about the international complaint that got us in this condition where we had to come up with an alternative solution than bloody war. This was the George Washington challenge. But first, they had to make a blood sacrifice. In a book called the Bible, they got what's called the blood of the righteous, or first blood of the righteous. The first blood of the righteous in sorcery and blood magic mean when you invade a land, you got to get the highest ranked individual you can capture and kill him and spill his blood and use his blood to write the blood oath contract. This blood oath contract, we call it the United States Constitution, not the one that's in the Library of Congress. That was the first Constitution. This is a secondary Constitution. Now, this is the Boston Massacre after the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party, the T is the square. This is telling you that it's a hangman game about to take place. In other words, it's about to be a public execution as represented by the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was the prelude to the Boston Massacre. The Boston Massacre culminated with the death of Crispus Attucks, and they have to tell us he was the first person to die, to shed blood for this nation. No, he was not. He was the first one of us to shed blood, that they can put us in a stupor by writing the Constitution in his blood, right? Now, they still have to go on a killing spree because they got to get rid of everybody that remember the old ways. This is where you bring in your Black Brotherhood of Spain, right? El Español Hermanos del Negros in your KKK, because they are the origin of the KKK. The regalia of the KKK comes from the Black Brotherhood of Spain, which was established by Moors in the Dark Ages. Okay, now, these people in the South by the tribes is referred to as the Black Hand, because the leader of the raids always had on that white regalia, KKK regalia, but the Black Hand was always hanging from under that white robe, and it wasn't no glove. Only thing they can tell the antiquity to identify who their attacker was to tell them it was the Black Hand that hang from under the white robe. Later, they gave pale faces black robes to mirror flip the circumstance. And this is where you get your Judiciary Act, your false judiciaries under the 1863 Charter of Savannah, Georgia by the French King George, who became King of England. He told them to take everything from us using the law. Well, the law that they given us is predicated upon levies and liens. The lien is the contract, because when you lien, you at a slant. The contract means against the tract or against the land, but you the living land. But they want to tell you the living man, because they want to separate you from Mother Earth. They want to tell the son that he don't have to honor the mother from which he came, as long as he can get the current that you can see, that paper, the green. The green is just the dye marker, right? That you put in the water to see where the current take it. And that way you can know what tributaries is coming from where in order to find out how you get into the mainstream. The mainstream is the old Mississippi, but we think the mainstream mean the common collective of the pop culture. The mainstream is the Mississippi because the old Mississippians is the oldest blood of the land, with first in time being first in line, having first right to the earth rights in order for one of the sons to restore the mothers. We remember the codes, but we have to figure out how to apply them in modern times with modern circumstances and situations. But we have to go back to the old ways in order to understand the redemption process. So they gave us the grandfather clause. They told you it was a Mrs. clause with your Christmas story, but they never told you that there was a grandmother clause in law, because the grandmother clause is tribal. That's why they keep erasing everything that the tribal mothers do on the land, right? If Lucy Parsons would have had the right strategist behind her, she would have told her if she would have sat in that sacerdotal seat in Philadelphia, she would have overthrew the conjure. But since she didn't have nobody tell her, and Empress Verdiasi didn't have nobody tell her, they couldn't stop it. Red House. Now we got to revert back to the Blue House, the Mississippi Delta Blue. Delta Blue is the Marines, Semper Fi. The Marines come from the Delta as the frogmen of the Navy, which was a special forces tribe from the land. But we don't know the history of this stuff, so we thinking that these is foreigners. They operating as foreigners, but they using our old stuff to their advantage. When any special forces operations was taught and trained from the land in warfare on the land. And this is why they kept hiring people from the land and putting other people on the land that don't belong to the land in order to confuse how warfare is fought. Right? Now, once they do all of this, it's a scrambled egg now. It's going to be almost impossible to figure this stuff out. Especially with you add the paper genocide, the Trail of Tears, the Indian train that don't nobody talk about no more. And I used to hear about it all the time when I was a little boy. When the old people used to be talking about, yeah, I remember they came down and told my grandma, you got an Indian train coming. You going on? She said, I ain't getting on no Indian train. I'm staying right here on my land. That's what the people was calling it in the South. It was called the Indian train, but none of us want to get on it. And as they went through, they incorporated the children from the Indian boarding schools into the mix with the very few of us who actually went into the land. This is how they was able to develop our old culture, because they had us teaching it to them. Right? They all talk that talk. All them $5 Indians be coming out like I just blocked one today on my Facebook page, and I don't block nobody. You got to really be foul for me to block you. Right? But when he want to try to convince me I'm from Africa and he from Siberia, then we ain't got nothing to talk about. I'm not the import. Right? I'm the original. I had a conversation a few years ago with a Moor, and he was like, which tribe you from? I said, all of them. He said, what you mean? I said, my bloodline is the root stock of all tribes that's native to this land, that's original to this land. Old Mississippian blood, Aztec, Inca, Olmec, I don't care what you call them. They the same people. And we ain't never went nowhere. We still here. That's why Tupac can talk to me in a song and tell me way more than you can read in the book. And the song only 3 minutes long on average. Right? He can get more information to all of the chiefs on the land in one song than you can put in a whole book. Brother Jay, cold talker like a mug. You go listen to Brother Jay, and if you can understand the Egyptology he using, the tribal lingo he using, and the way that he's using it, he can educate you on your condition. Raquel, one of the greatest to ever do it. Follow the leader. Brother said, digging my ducks, never dug him. He couldn't follow the leader long enough, so I drug him in the danger zone. He should have ranged his own, spacing the place, it's the cuts to range the tone. It's one R in the alphabet. It's a 4-letter word, and it's about to get more complex from one rhyme to the next. Eric B, be easy on the flex. Right? They can tell us stuff. Ice Cube. He know he had Afro Chief. Right? We call them Afro Chiefs because the hairstyle now was referred to as an Afro. That's not what they was called in antiquity. They was just called Mississippians. Mississippi is not a European word, but it's coded and loaded with code. But if you don't know the code, you won't never flip the message out of the code. And I ain't going to go into decoding Mississippi because there's a lot of people that think I'm just making stuff up. They'll figure it out one day, and I'm going to be using it to my advantage the whole time. And when they figure it out, they're going to say the only way that he could have did all that, he had to know what this means.
That's fire. I'm gonna roll this coin. I'm gonna roll these first couple ones real quick, then, bro.
The original Europeans didn't disappear. They were replaced and betrayed by their own Moorish kin. The dirty Venetians, they didn't conquer with armies. They infiltrated with whispers and greed. They found their willing partners, Moors who sold their birthright for a gilded cage.
Their appetites were easily swayed. They sold their heritage for this, the fleeting trinkets of a foreign court.
People didn't build these magnificent cities, we just walked in. But who got us ready to walk in? The Venetians.
To pave the way for their true agenda, the dirty Moorish bloodlines, the hidden hand.
And when the truth became too dangerous, they crafted a lie for the masses. Othello, a masterful deception. Venetians, architects of influence, they forged a new order, pawns in their grand design to fortify the return on their terms. Sold the divine spark, denied Conte Aleni, his doctrine, a license to exploit. Religion twisted.
The Albravos, Moors who chose survival over truth, acting like they were Christians, a disguise, hiding their true nature behind a borrowed faith. The Venetians knew their weaknesses, their base desires. Thus the mighty fell, seduced by
And now that's fire right there. It's like an AI thing.
Yeah. They think you made that video out of.
No, I ain't make it. No, Rod, that's one of Rod receipts he sent me earlier.
So look, let's go over a little bit of that. Now, there's some symbolism in the actual video that a lot of us probably overlook. Like you didn't see that picture of Yaqub on the side of the church with his big ass head. I'm gonna tell you something else you probably overlooked. Earlier in the video, they had showed the dude on the painting, the Moor, had the pale lady with the puppet strings to her. Remember I was telling you about blackface?
Yeah,
Right.
black face, white hand.
Look, so look, go over it. Let's go play the video. I'm gonna tell you when to pause it and look at the picture.
Now we told you the Moors,
Like this video,
they created the federal government.
The original Europeans didn't disappear. They were replaced and betrayed by their own Moorish kin. The dirty Venetians, they didn't conquer with armies. They infiltrated with whispers and greed. They found their willing partners, Moors who sold their birthright for a gilded cage.
Their appetites were easily swayed. They sold their heritage for this.
it won't let me because I got it into loaded into screen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Pause.
All right, so that picture that we was just looking at,
I have it loaded it up. Yeah.
right? That picture that we was just looking at, that was showing them making them deals around the corner. Almost all the faces is melanated except one. If you play a little longer, you're gonna see. I'm gonna let it go this time. Let it go till you see the puppet master pulling the strings of the pale lady.
The original Europeans didn't disappear. They were replaced and betrayed by their own Moorish kin. The dirty Venetians, they didn't conquer with armies. They infiltrated with whispers and greed. They found their willing partners, Moors who sold their birthright for a gilded cage.
Their appetites were easily swayed. They sold their heritage for this, the fleeting trinkets of a foreign court.
People didn't build these magnificent cities, we just walked in. But who got us ready to walk in? The Venetians, to pave the way for their true agenda. The dirty Moorish bloodlines, the hidden hand. And when the truth became too dangerous, they crafted a lie for the masses. Othello,
Look,
a masterful deception. Venetians, architects of influence. They forged a new order, pawns in their grand design to fortify the return on their terms. Sold the divine spark, denied Conte Aleni, his doctrine, a license to exploit. Religion twisted.
the Albravos, Moors who chose survival over truth, acting like they were Christians, a disguise, hiding their
Pay
true
attention.
nature behind a borrowed faith. The Venetians knew their weaknesses, their base desires. Thus the mighty fell,
It was in the Grand Canyon. They described something like that in the temples in the Grand Canyon.
Did you see Yaqub?
Yeah, I seen him next to that other picture.
Right behind the checkerboard floor. And notice as soon as he said the ancient ones who know the game, the checkerboard floor popped up. That's not a coincidence.
They're not saying the Felicians. They saying with a V, right? They saying Venetians.
Venetians, yeah. That's the ones who settled Venice. The Venetians settled Venice. The Etruscans settled Tuscany. Right.
I read it.
Right. So there's two different groups. Those are the ones was sent in their children to civilize the European, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But this is a whole nother story. I don't want to go back down that road. But the whole thing they were showing you in there was how they was using infiltration, bribery, and deception the whole time. Those are different kind games. This is why you say a dude that's book smart and street smart, the most dangerous one, because he can see the game, the times they play in the corporate world, in the business world, in the politics. The average person can't see the kind in the game, so they continue to play the game in fraud. As long as you participate in the fraud, then you liable as a participant to fraud. So when the fraud come tumbling down, your world come tumbling down around you because you tied into the fraud. This is why we have to use the oral tradition to override the paperwork, because the paperwork is a paper chain designed to trap you, and the ones who sell paperwork are slave catchers. Because when you do the paperwork, you, in order to put somebody on notice with their own system, right? They not gonna honor that.
That's what I was thinking about too. That other
Right.
part.
So it was like what I posted the other day. When the whole system is acting in fraud and you catch it, which one of them gonna give up their lifestyle in order to honor your recognition of the fraud? No, they all acting in fraud. They can't go against the fraud they acting in because you figured it out. But the more people coattail you pull, the more people abandon the fraud, because that's the only defense to a crime. That the abandonment defense of a crime of inclusion. I mean, it's a conspiracy, a group. When you discover the fraud, you're supposed to cease and desist all activities associated with the fraud, right? The only problem with the way that the system is set up through adhesion contracts, even when you think you're stepping away from the fraud, you stepping back into the fraud. So you still giving them jurisdiction, trying to assert that they don't have jurisdiction, right? You got to wait till they kidnap you first. Then you got to be a master of the habeas corpus, the great writ, right? The last person suspended it was George Bush, suspended the power of the writ. But the Constitution said that no act of government shall suspend the power of the great writ. So it was supposed to be null and void, but the courts stopped hearing habeas corpuses once you're done is done. They can only hear over it one time. And then they didn't have to accept the habeas corpus. Before, they had to at least acknowledge the habeas corpus and tell you why they're not going to review the case. Right? So the suspension of the writ means that you trapped in the position of servitude. This is why, like, I'm not on no probation, parole, none of that. I did my time of walking down my parole, right? So I'm no longer a bond servant. All of the ones that are still locked up is bond servants, knowingly or unknowingly. It don't matter. Everybody locked up is a bond servant. That means that there's a bond that you forced to be in service to, that's tied to you through the government, right? Now I can speak up for the ones in there where they use fraudulent means to ensnare them in their traps, right? Because if you don't know how they trapped them, you won't know how to tell the people they got trapped. So they won't be able to see that they was never supposed to be there, and that alone should be sufficient to free them. Like, they didn't say Larry told the guy, hey, go shoot this dude. That's not what he was in there for. Larry was in there because they said the dude believed that Larry needed this done, so he just took it on himself to go do it.
Yeah.
That's what Larry went to prison for. It's called influence. That law in Illinois has since been taken off the books, right? So the law that Larry is in the state case on is no longer a law in Illinois. Fruit of the poison tree apply. When you repeal the law, you release the man.
Right. That's a fact.
Right.
They did that with the weed.
Unless you fall under Dred Scott,
Dang.
an outlaw tribe. You got to think about that.
That's right, Rod.
You got, in order for them to continuously hold you, they are acknowledging the fact that you are a tribal leader with no treaty.
Yeah.
And they're going to force you into a treaty agreement in order to liberate you from your bondage. And that's why Larry been in there that long, because he won't do contract business with the government. And they know this.
Yeah, he said it
The same with Angel Bay, Jeff Ford. He wouldn't do business with the government. That whole case against him, the terrorism case, is the same case they used to murder Prince Lowe. It's the same case, the same actors trying to trap another prince up after they done took down the king. He not gonna fall for that. And when he didn't fall for it, they murdered Prince Lowe on the west side. Chicago know what I'm talking about. They lied on Jeff. They brought in some people who supposed to be code crackers, and they figured out the language of the P-Stones, and they said that Jeff was giving them orders in coded messages, right? But the messages don't match what they telling you they saying.
Yeah. They saying that he
Right.
said go get a bazooka or all this crazy stuff.
Jeff never said that.
Yeah.
Right. They got documentaries on that stuff showing you how they set it up. Jeff was already locked up when that happened.
Yeah. CIA.
He was doing a meatball, but they used that because they couldn't afford to let him hit the streets again. He had learned too much and he had become too influential in the city of Chicago. He would have been able to start organizing the tribes. Between him, King David, Larry Hoover, and Big Bull, and a few others, they would have been able to organize the whole city of Chicago in an instant to put down any resistance from the government aside from air bombing.
Damn.
You gotta remember, it was a dude that looked like us that ordered the bombing on Philadelphia move on the family of Giant Africa. Because they was going back to the tribal way of living. Because Giant Africa understood that you have to be one with the land in order for you to stay healthy and have longevity. And they trying to cut us off from the land and force us into labor camps. Right? They didn't have to blow them people up. But we don't remember the first part, though. Before they blew them up, they shot them up. We forgot about that part, though. They was sending bullets in there with women and children hiding for their life before they dropped the bombs.
Damn, boy.
We not paying attention. They never stopped warring against us. Right? We trying to follow what they call in Islam Sirata Mustaqim, the straight and narrow way. The only way that you can get out of this without going to a raw, bloody warfare is by strategy alone. You have to out-strategize the enemy. Expose his fraud to the people. While you showing the people who's behind the fraud, what they doing with the receipts. Right? That's why these oral traditions are so important. Because under the oral tradition, we can use their written word to prove the corruption of their ways. We can show you they split tongue when they talking with two agendas by they doing two different things in actuality. They signed treaties saying one thing, but their actions did another. That means they came in with two agendas. They lying. They spreading falsehood. Now, the ones who are unaware are the orphans who's growing up after they did murder their parents and their grandparents with no information or no knowledge of self. Anybody that can figure any of it out, they getting lynched.
Let me roll that coin, bro. I got two.
We told you the more. Now we told you the Moors were the feds. They created the federal government, the jurisdictions you go by. This talks about Benjamin Banneker, who created the federal government. He was an astronomer in America.
Ben Bay, they'll tell you that Benjamin Banneker designed the White House in Washington, D.C. But what they won't tell you is that he designed the federal government to go with it. He perfected the science of federal government, and he gave to the Europeans to the Masonic Lodge. He referred to, when you see on the back dollar bill, "In God We Trust," that's how he phrased the government that he put together, because it was G period, O period, D period. Government, ordinance, Department of Justice, the three branches of the federal government. Government is the executive branch, ordinance, the legislative branch, and Department of Justice, the judiciary branch. So they were saying, this form of government that we gave them, they trust. Benjamin Banneker's true name was Benday Emmanuel Muali.
Our history is not known.
Hey, so Rod, could you go in a little bit on the George Washington hat? I mean, the phases in the George Washington Memorial and Ben Bay being a traitor, really? To me,
They are the ones. Listen, they are the ones who came from Europe and wanted to lay claim to this land. The tripartite system that he laid down is based on the 3 degrees of masonry. So you have judicial, legislative, and executive. Executive is police, legislative is lawmakers, and judicial is the ones who mediate between the activities of the two. Right? So it's based on entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason.
Right.
Right. That's Blue House. The principles of the Blue House is being laid down, but it's coming out of the 32-degree Scottish Rite Red House from Europe. Free white persons in law, Scottish bankers, having established the Scottish Bank off the Scottish Rite Freemasons. These are the ones who not only are they establishing the three-party system or the three-part system, they're also in the process of instituting a centralized banking cartel. They're going to use this banking cartel to deplete us of our wealth using debt and inflation. Debt is told to you as interest rate or taxation. And the inflation is taking it by changing the value of the currency as you lower the value of the goods. I mean, you lower the value of the currency, it increases the value of the goods. So that's cutting it off the top and the bottom. Pretty soon they're going to cut you all the way out.
Damn. Mafia.
Right. So the three-part system had to be established in order to commercialize everything under the salvage right being applied through Uniform Commercial Code. What we know as the black codes is derivatives of the commercial code, right? Because it's to tell them how to handle the ones discovered dead walking around lost at sea. Right? C is a musical note. Right? So when you lost at sea, the only thing you can do is try to rise to E. Right? So it's a Mississippian blues connotation. To rise from C, class, to E is educated. Right? So when everything means something, but it don't mean anything until you say it means something. By establishing firm definitions, you establish the criteria by which everybody will follow the system according to the understanding of the language that's been defined for them. When they realize that they speak more than one language simultaneously, and then they start realizing they multilingual, because we don't just speak in words, we speak in body language. We speak in facial expression. right? We speak by altering our positions, what they call gestures. And these messages carry through in the form of the hieroglyphics. So we can tell each other the story and wake everybody up from the slumber. Right? So the George Washington, Crispus Attucks connection is the same as the Benjamin Banneker and Lewis and Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Remember, they surveyors. Lewis and Clark are surveyors. Benjamin Banneker is what they call it, a jurist, an astrologer, astronomer, and he's a navigator.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ben Bay escorted Lewis and Clark on their expedition because they were supposed to serve as Peter and Paul. But all the time, the one who was doing the stealing was the one that was hiding behind Peter and Paul. Because he was a Jew.
They end up killing that dude later, 3 years after that. 1803, Louisiana Purchase. 3 years later, they give a story that some Knights of Templar raided Benjamin Banneker's house, stole paperwork, and he went on the walk, came back, he died. I don't believe, it seemed like to me he could have faked his death or something, bro. What you think on that, Rod? Because the storyline,
his story is the same as Nikola Tesla's. His story is the same as several other prominent figures back then who was at odds. Jacques de Molay, the leader of the Templars, died the same way. They try to force them to give them the sacred Masonic word, right? But the word is in wide open. It's in plain sight.
Right.
And they thinking that the secret is concealed secretly. The secret is in the open.
Right.
Because everything has to be in the public domain if you're going to play in this game of the gods we playing in. When the masters come through, it's cleanup time. Right? And now comes Judge Dredd, the final judge. Right? They call me in to find out what the problem is and why it's still operating. I'm the chief of last resort. I'm the one you ain't supposed to want to see. And that's why I get so much hate. Because they know I'm either going to fix the problem or I'm going to blow it all up. Ain't no two in betweens. Either going to fix it or destroy it. This is fixable. Because everything around us now is predicated up on the maintenance of ignorance, collective ignorance. And so we have to move into a public educational format, right? We have to make the universe the new university. Our geology has to be walking the earth, right? Exercising our geography. So we use what we can in our environment in order to read the continuum. The continuum is the repeat patterns and cycles. Every time you observe a repeat pattern, you can see the exit shortly thereafter. But if you don't never pick up on the patterns, you can't never get out of the game. That's what Michael Jackson was telling us in The Wiz. You can't win. You can't get out of the game. You can't win because you have to play it to the end. And the end is when the marathon got to come to an end. It got to be a finish line somewhere, right? If it's a finish line, one of us gonna figure it out. So the Feds Memorial is all of the Moors that was contracted under the Scottish Rite Freemason, 32 degree Scottish Rite Freemasons, to come from Europe and apply an interim jurisdictional government while we, the 50 chiefs, that's the 50 niggas. Or as Tupac would say, 50 niggas, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished, right? These 50 are on the mural as Inca chiefs with King Charles V.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to identify both sides of the war, the white pieces on the chessboard and the black pieces. Because if you're going to play the pieces, you got to know where your dog at in the fight. And all you got to do is be able to establish a heart link connection, and you can tell if you got a dog in that fight in order to do your work. I just got a dog in a whole lot of fights. I'm a dog man. Dogs flip guys, and guys flip with dogs. Mirror flipping. It's a code. Zigzag zig. Postgraduate, renewal of the lessons. End game is a resurrection. That's common sense, right? Don't worry about the boys in the hood. They still bad boys, even if they is on death row. Because if they in Minnesota, they just rude boys, right? And the rude boy in Jamaica is a shotter. A shotter is a shooter. But the shooter don't shoot unless he can see the target.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the code of the sniper apply. To minimize collateral damage, the sniper is taught one shot, one kill. No wasted ammo. Just like there's no wasted food, beans and bullets. That's how you feed the poor. Protect the people and feed the people. There's nowhere on this earth where we supposed to need food, clothing, and shelter. Right. Nobody's supposed to be out in the streets sleeping when we got a blizzard coming in, unless they choose to be out there by their own free will of a competent and sound man.
Right.
Right. In that case, they coming out there, they playing survival war games with themselves to see if they can survive the condition. We understand that. That's a rites of passage into manhood. Know the blizzard coming, and he got to go out there and have a shelter established, protection set up, and a way to feed himself. And all this got to be done before the blizzard dump on him. See, rites of passage. So we understand that sometimes they got to go out into the wilderness. But when he come back, he gonna be more of a man than he was before because he just activated a new level of superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's why the wise young men isolate themselves from the public. Because the seed don't grow in the light. It grow in the dark, but it's sprout in the light.
Oh, that's fire right there. That's a quote. That's like a you can write that down. That's a biblical quote right there. Yeah, boy. That's one of them keys to Solomon. You gave keys to Solomon. Hey, Rod. Let me roll this tape here because I want to ask you a question off this talk.
How are we going to hurt them economically, being a disenfranchised people without very much money on the whole?
You know what? If the black people ever figured out or sat down and calculated how much money they make, they would be the third richest nation in the world. Black people in the Western Hemisphere make more money than most foreign countries. You make more money than France as a whole country, blacks alone. They just don't know the power they have. And the way to hit them is stop working for them and start working for self and kind. Start doing things, start building business from the inside out. Stop giving yourself to them as slaves and then expecting them to treat you other than a slave. Right. If you want to be treated like a slave, keep working for them. As long as you work for them, you're still a slave. Or you got to look at the book of Revelations in an 18th chapter, it tell you that they want the slaves and the souls of men, and they rule them by a form of sorcery. You follow the 24th verse.
clarifying. So how do we overcome this distrust, which is something that seems to keep us back?
Distrust between each other?
Yes.
Yeah. So pretty much I want to ask you about like right now, as Nubians, as the original people of this in America, we, like he said, we make more money than the French if we put our money together. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought this across in the message to the black man too. So
It's
I'm
expired.
saying go ahead.
But it's expired. Because that's when we was laboring for money. We gotta remember, we had a jurisdictional right to the soil of the earth, to the minerals of the earth that come from the land that our big mamas come from. All that is being returned. Back then, the reason he was pushing the group economics the same as Claude Anderson is because it was a monopoly game being played. In the monopoly game, we started with no credits. Everybody else started with credits, properties, and money, and we started with nothing.
Damn.
Right? Because they system we wasn't part of, we wasn't supposed to get anything. It had nothing to do with us as outlaw tribes. Right? So the only people involved was the people at the table what became black millionaires and billionaires that you don't even know was over here. Because they took their money and they moved to their gated communities because they was the ones that was orchestrating the Plato's Republic as a constitutional institution in order to usurp it with sorcery. You heard what Baba said. They used sorcery. The only way to break the spell of a spell is to expose it, what it is and how it works to the people that's being influenced by the energy of the spell. Right? Now, as you do a blood ritual, the blood on paper only lasts for a period of time and the blood fades away.
He said 200 years. Is there
on average? That's the story that John Dee was able to interpret from the writings of Jacques de Molay. John Dee is a pseudonym. That's not his real name, whoever he was. But whoever he was used the name John Dee because the sorcery that he got came from the writings of the assassination of Jacques de Molay, the Templar. Right? So he take his writings, he tell Queen Elizabeth about the blood oath. It's a Babylonian ritual blood rite in order to compel the people to follow you by using the blood of their leader. And this is what they was doing. Certain leaders, according to the rules of the game, they not allowed to kill them, but they could usurp them and block them from the throne. What do usurp mean? Jacobin. They can jack you for your
Yakub.
Right. Now, Yakub is shortened is Jack. Right? Jack is also short for Joaquin. Joaquin is the opposite pillar from Boaz. Right? So you learn severity and mercy becomes the teaching tools for the masses. You move toward the pleasure and away from the pain. So you inflict the pain while you showing them which direction is the light. Because now they trying to get away from the pain and now they're going to start focusing on the light ahead. Stop falling for the narratives of the satire. Putin just offered $1 billion to Trump for a joint venture project in association with the Greenland deal. Let that sink in. They got you thinking that they are enemy. They working hand in hand as part of the Earth Alliance to clean this shit up everywhere.
That's right.
Right? Now, the whole Iran thing, they not gonna bomb Iran. United States not finna bomb Iran. Why? Because the people in Iran had enough of the bullshit. Because they tired of being shit on by a bunch of stubborn ass old bulls.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And antiquated false religious dogma. So they rebel. Soon as they declare war on America, the people in Iran immediately hit the streets. Oh no, y'all done went too damn far. We not finna feed y'all Islamic World War III morals and dogma agenda. We not finna participate. And you ain't finna drag us in it. If you want to fight him, you go over there and put on some boxing gloves and fight Trump yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know whether he's still living or not, the Ayatollah rock and roller over there. But they saving Benny Baby for last. Right? Because the Israel-West Bank war is a proxy war. It's not never intended to be won or lost. That's not Israel. When the Ukraine fall, Israel crumbles. Because those are the Khazars. The war in Ukraine is the Khazarian override that's being exposed, but they keep trying to use the West Bank Israeli war as a diversionary tactic. Like we don't know that those people that's calling themselves Zionists, Khazarians, came from the Ukraine. He said that's their homeland. It's even recorded and documented when their king converted. Their king converted to Judaism because he didn't want to be a Christian or a Muslim. We don't want to talk about that. These people, along with the ones that's called Sephardi. The Sephardi is known as the Spanish Jew, but the pale Spanish Jew. The real Spanish Jew is a Morisco or Morenos. He's the one in secret relation between blacks and Jews doing all the slave trade. In association with his Arab brethren like Tipper Tid. But we ain't supposed to even acknowledge any of that as part of the historical context of what we dealing with over here. And that's why they teach it as a different branch of history. Because if most people are going to study American history, they're going to become patriotic, they're going to believe in the American way, and ain't nobody along the way going to say, wait a minute, but what happened to the people that was already here?
Right.
They said they killed them off, but everywhere I look, I still see us walking around doing what we've been doing for thousands of years. We land dancing and stepping in the Midwest. We Southern land dancing all through the South. We jitting, gigging, all this funky footwork that's natural to us that the other people got to learn the 1-2 step method to learn their culture. When we just got to see it and it infect us like a virus because it's already in us. It's getting activated by our brothers doing this particular dance. When Detroit, we jitting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is how breakdancing was birthed in the boroughs. As alternative means for us killing each other, let's dance out. Which reached all the way to the Bay and gave us hyphy clowns. Dancing around, humping around, and jumping around like Digital Underground, right? They telling you the story. We still doing the same thing we always did. We can still see us doing it, and you can tell the imposter because they hate it every time they can't stop us from doing what we already gonna do. You can't stop us from being us. We who we are.
Right.
We know how we move. We know how to teach each other and talk to each other in the manner that get the message across of where the real enemy at and how we fighting him, where he came from. Roll the coin, Elder. What you got next?
Hey, we're gonna take we could take some questions, Roy. We got about 24 minutes. Hey, y'all, we got about 2,000 people on. Hey, everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. For the people that was asking about hey, don't do no super chat, just send it to Roy, man, because they take somebody sent me a $300 super chat. They only gave me $125 out of that $300 super chat. I was like, man, that's a robbery. Like, where that money going? Then they don't even show you where it's going. So yeah, but I just dropped it in the somebody got a question right here.
No, sweetie, it's not just about dancing. The dancing is a side effect of the activity of the soul. The soul expresses itself in the artistic expression in the dances. And because they've made fun of us in all of their Western movies as having these powwow dances, but the stuff that we've always done, we still doing it. We doing it all over the land. We never stop being ourselves we at home. They trying to convince us to not express our inner soul because we can recognize each other. We know how we move. If a foreigner come through here, I don't care where he from. Haitians is not foreigners to North America. Jamaicans are not foreigners. Cubans and Dominicans are not foreigners when we talk about the original people of these lands. We are one people where we got many branches to the family, right? And if you look at how the conquest, you have to study Venezuela, study Brazil, look at how the amalgamation went, and you understand the one-drop doctrine was there for a reason, because it was the remedy that they came seeking in order to heal the genetic defects of the grafted devils, so to speak. Because they was in the laboratory messing around with stuff they shouldn't have been messing with, and we became the ones responsible to clean it up because they was too stupid to figure it out. Stop using sulfur when you're trying to conceal your creations. That was the first problem. Right? And the deliberate shutting down of parts of the genome and the institution of new programs in the genome that controls people. Nobody can't live their best life because they all arrested development, retarded to sixth grade education level or 6-year-old education level. When you enter in the first grade, that's the first step of your intellectual detox from thinking, critical thinking, and practical problem solving.
Hey, Roy, I forgot that you had these right here. It's just a couple slides. I want, like, you just can say what you're gonna say about them right here. Like, we got to go over this too. This part of this whole evidence thing that we got going, because I'm gonna make stuff from this. So, this is a flyer you sent me about the guilt. Like, the people coming. It's a whole bunch of people coming out the U.S. now, and it's all in the tabloid. Just ain't talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the guilty. This one right here too.
Yeah. Okay, so you got to remember, the police does not belong here. They are a foreign occupying military force. They don't belong here. They only here because they are the executive branch of the interim government. Now, if you want an example of how it worked, you have to go back to the Iraq War. That's the most recent example where you could see its totality. right? The police is equivalent to the U.S. peacekeeping forces in Iraq. And the interim president of Iraq is equivalent to the commander-in-chief of the armed forces that was established here as the United States. The problem is that once the commander-in-chief finds a competent chief of the land that can clearly show you the fraud, he's obligated by the codes of military justice to restore the rightful owners to their proper position as part of the Republic Restored program. It's called the Restored Republic because it's under what's called the redemption right. The redemption right is explained in the Uniform Commercial Code, and how do you reclaim what was yours when somebody's squatting on your property, basically. You have to identify who you are, where you from, and then you have to see if there's a trail that can verify that all of this stuff is fraud. They already confessed to the fraud, right? The United States been found guilty of crimes against humanity and genocide for their activities on the land.
Right.
The United States is not the people. The United States was already ruled in the Supreme Court to be a corporation. Now, the corporation that was over Iraq was called Halliburton, who was also responsible for the rebuild in Afghanistan. The ones that was over here, the contract companies that came over here started off the Northwest Trading Company, the Virginia Trading Company, the Royal Company de El Maroc, which we know, we call it Morocco, but it was a corporation. They was all fighting for the right to be the ones to govern over the land until the suitable tribal leader stepped up to reclaim the land, right? In this struggle, they end up having wars in the transports of goods from America to England because somebody had to pay for this shit. And in the process, the Royal Moroccan Company is feuding with the Virginia Company and the Northwest Trading Company. Those two companies eventually merge with several other companies. One of them was a Dutch company, but they all merged. And then they became one major company. And then they were the ones who's being called the United States of America, because that's the name of the new company that the amalgamation and absorption of smaller companies to govern and rebuild the land was part of. Now, the only thing that they have to do is establish some kind of peaceful arrangement with the Spanish Moroccan Company that's coming out of Northern Africa from the ones who fled in exile from Spain during the Inquisition. Back then, there was no country called Morocco. It was called Al-Maghrib. There was no Libya. There was no Tunis. That northwestern portion was called Al-Maghrib when they was running them out of Spain. So when they went there, they came over here, and in the process, they warring with the company that's going to become the United States of America. And they need to come to some kind of agreement. So they met in Paris, France, to sign what was known as the Paris Accord, which was to establish a peaceful operations by treaty. commonly referred to as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. From this treaty, they won't interfere as long as when they divide it up, they get their due share. But they can't get it if we win. If we win the George Washington Challenge, they don't get shit. Right? But if we win, the tribes, we get it all back. They lost, we won. I remembered your ass is grass. So now we put it all back together. We reminding people of what happened. And we showing them where we getting it from. And then we explaining it to them different from how it was told as part of the false narrative. Because they had to keep up the false narrative in order to hold on to their last sips of power. There's no more sips.
Hey, Rod, somebody said, what you think about, shout out that boy Victor Patterson. Hey, he said, what do you think about Hitler being a black guy? I heard
all those reels we see of Adolf Hitler came from vaudeville. They came from vaudeville. Vaudeville was the silent music movie industry. Later on, they became your first movie reels, is what they was called. The character that we seeing in the picture we've been seeing is not who Adolf Hitler was. He was the actor that they used in the vaudeville reels so that we won't know that there's other people that look like us in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
That was a psyop played on the people in America. And most of the people in Europe know Adolf Hitler was swarthy because they called him the Swarth. Right? And he had a genetic breeding program trying to correct the genetic defect in the people. This is where he got the blonde hair, blue eye Aryan race when the Aryans is not blonde hair nor blue eye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The real Aryans are the people they call the Dravidians. But Enki's children was removed from power by Enlil's children in the Vermanus Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know nothing about that. So we won't know how to retell them what's taking place. The real Aryans look like the Jacksons 5 in 1973 in the family portrait. That's what they looked at like.
That's right, Rod.
Right. Now they giving us Enlil stringy hair kids, avatars, right? Calling them divine incarnations, and all they doing is taking what Enki said when he was the first fat Buddha, right? And as the first real Buddha, and then they retread him with Enlil's children. And now he looks Polynesian. Or he looks stringy hair Indian, Hindu. That's not the original Buddha. The original Buddha was called the Old Man Africa. But they call him that in modern times. That's not what he was called back then. He was called the Ethiops. The Ethiops is where you get your word Ethiopia. And this is why the old maps at one time had Ethiopia scrawled across them for the entirety of the continent before they changed the continent's name to Al Sudan. Right? Then you see the old maps with Sudan in English character written across the continent. That's when after the fall of the Songhai, Mali, and Ghana empires. Right? When each one of those empires was in power, everything else was like outreaches. The government wasn't ran how government is ran now. The only purpose of government is to allocate resources to diverse places. Otherwise, you don't need it. Right? Most of the functions of government used to be a family's traditional job. They just passed it down in the job. Everybody was rich, but they had what was called the family business, which a lot of people last names was derived from what they families did. Like the tailors, they used to make clothes, part of the Anasazi, the great weavers of fabric. Or you got people like the goldsmiths who used to smelt the gold for Big Mama. And they was the ones who used to set the standard for the coins in which we use for trade. Right? Then you had the silversmith clan. They did the same thing with the silver. Right? The blacksmiths, they were the ones who smelted the iron and formed the iron into the metal artwork. Right? Those are under the Kripke, the crooked man, patron saint of the handicapped and those who work with iron. It just so happened that bodybuilders in modern times are the offshoots of those bloodlines, like Ronnie Coleman, right? This is where Big Tookie come in, because that's his function, energetically to the earth, to be the patron saint of the handicapped and those who work with iron. And that's why he had to give Schwarzenegger the rub for Schwarzenegger to become great. He had to touch greatness to become greatness. But he just took it from our system to their system in order to help us with our system. Right? So everything ties back to us at the end of the day. And what's this next question?
Somebody said, "Yo, Rod, Wakanda. What you think about?" It says, "What tribe was Wakanda made about? You think?"
If you go to the movie, right, it's telling you Tupac life story from the time he was in the Bay. It pick up after he left Baltimore. He in the Bay now. This is when he first had the encounter. T'Challa first had his encounter at the beginning of the first movie, right? At the end of the first movie, after he did all this fighting throughout the whole movie, he go back to the Bay, renovate the university or the library or something, and then he's talking about rebuilding the Bay Area, right? And they keep referring to T'Challa as the Black Panther. Now remember, in the movie, they thought he was dead, and then they went to the gorilla chief. It's telling you the story of Tupac. Basically. But they're using the reference of Wakanda, which is actually a reference to the iridium in Haiti, based on the components of the metals. Right? And this is why the one, when the girl became the Black Panther, she had to go to Haiti. She had to return to the motherland. So she left Africa, which we used to call the father's land, the land of Enki. And this over here is the original land of Isis, but she gave it to her baby boy, Tahuti, to be the guardian of the earth. He inherits the Americas. And she kept for herself Europe and Asia and Australia. And she assigned what we call today India and Africa to Enki. So you got different bloodlines, but you can only tell by the male haplogroup because all of the women trace back to the first mother. And after so many years, the first mother's blood DNA quantum reassembles based on the convergence and divergence of genetic pools.
Is he saying Hall? Hall?
Yeah, the last name Hall, like Prince Hall.
Yeah, that's Chata. Yeah, Chata.
Yeah. That used to be Longhouse lingo. The Hall used to be the Longhouse. And Hall is the English rendition of it. It's like a big ass pole barn. But that's what the political meetings used to, because it was always accompanied by a feast. So the Longhouse was the government headquarters. And then you had the Red House and the Blue House. One was your ambassadors and politicians who greet the strangers, and the other ones was the guardians of the bloodlines, your Red House. And this was responsible for cleaning up the genetic fuck up, the Red House. And the Blue House had nothing to do with it, but they can't do it without the Blue House. They need both sides of the family involved, right? So if you look at what was going on in Europe from 711 to 1492, you realize that they was trying to fix the problem on their own, but they was too much for them. They needed help. They needed some Brazilianization going on. But that's a whole nother thing. That's part of the South American Studies group. We ain't got there yet.
Oh yeah, we might have to come back. We had to do I might have to do a whole breakdown on it. The South American Study Group. That sounds interesting. Hey y'all, hit that like button. We had about like 8,000 people on, so that constitutes enough people for this to be noticed the agent, notice the principal. We got about 2,100 people on now, more. Everybody hit that like button right now. Hit that subscribe if you're new to the channel. Man, everybody sent Chief $5 and put them all over the game. Everybody send them. If you can't do that, send them $1. I know you got $1. If you a baller, send them 100. Send them a C note, man. Put them in the game. All right. So, hey, I got one more question for you, Chief, before we get out of here, because somebody was asking about this. They said, well, somebody just dropped it. Let me see. Is this a super chat? This might be the question right here. It says, to oral tradition, what oral laws in reference to the Dragon Constitution? Drago? They might be saying constellation.
No, they talking about the paperwork.
Okay.
Right. So the oral tradition is older than the paperwork tradition. And if nobody's stopped us from using it, and as a matter of fact, it's one of our rights. And it's both asserted to in the Indigenous Rights Act of the United Nations and the United States Rights of Indigenous People. So it's in both of them that we got a right to use our oral tradition. So they wrote it in their system saying that's our right. But if we don't use it, what good is it to have it as a right? I just so happen to remember a lot of my past lives. So I know a lot of the oral tradition from having past life regressive memories. In the process, a lot of us don't remember, but as soon as we see it, we recognize it and we acknowledge it by participating in spreading the public notice. And that's how we get the message to all of the tribes, because all of the tribes don't talk the same, don't use the same lingo. So sometimes we have to shake the information in a different direction in order to get somebody that speak the lingo from, let's say, LA and Chicago, to tell them what a Chicago guy is saying in relation to LA culture. So now he know how to use the information from tribe to our advantage.
Somebody said, me again, Rod, something when I sit to myself, see a little light electric gliding across my eyes, and I can see it, and it begins happening a lot. You know what that is, bro?
That's just part of your awakening. You actually looking inside your brain, you seeing your synapses fight. Especially if your eyes are closed and you seeing it. You looking
Hey,
in
y'all, we about to get ready to
from
get
your
off.
inner eye. I'm not going to decipher all the last names.
Yeah,
Did you do a video on the last names, Elder?
Yeah, I already got. Yeah, already got. If you want to get the last name thing, go to the playlist we got called Native American Chief List and watch. Shout out Dame Calloway, man, because Dame Calloway was one of the instrumental people on this tape. It's called Tracing Your Ancestral History, Part 1 through 7. And if I remember straight, I think Barlow was Shinnecock, but it depends on where you from, though. So, but that tape, but those 7 tapes is probably like about 8-9 hours long. But they not a piece, but like all together. But if you watch those tapes, it's gonna show your last name, the demographics, what location your family might have been in, how to look up on the dogs' rolls. All that information is in those tapes in that file, right? Hey, what else I need to say? Let me just drop this right here. Hey, y'all, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, man. Everybody sent Chief something on the Cash App, man. Well, you want to say something before we get out of here, Chief? Because I got to get ready to shut it down anyway, because everybody got to get up at 5 o'clock.
No, I'm good. I think we gave him a lot.
Yeah, we'll come back, though, if we come up with something else. Hey, I got a couple AI tapes they're going to go along with this to come out tomorrow. They supposed to drop today, but they might even come out tomorrow. They probably come out Friday. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, y'all, hey, man, peace and love throughout the land. One love, one heart, free all of our political prisoners. Y'all, we still at war. This is a mental war now, though. I feel like this is a mental war. Like we just gotta get enough minds, and we got enough minds now, but we want to get more minds aware to the fraud. You know what I'm saying? The more minds we got aware to the fraud, the faster this shit go down. You see what I'm saying? Go ahead, bro. You want to say something? Then we're gonna get out of here.
Oh no, we good, El. I'm good.
Hey, y'all, we out, y'all. Wadu.
Wadu.
Never have it been made so clear.